Thank you all so much for being here today for another wonderful CFA workshop. This workshop we put together because a lot of our first film challenge participants in the November round said they would love to know how to use Resolve because to win a lot of the Blackmagic prizes, you have to submit through editing in Resolve. And I was like, well, we'll just bring it to the whole community because I know that I've been using Resolve for years and really like it because it's just an all-in-one platform. But let's do it. So we brought John in from Blackmagic, who is obviously I'm gonna call him the pro, even though he'll say he's not the pro. Now you can't say you're not the pro.
I'm not the pro.
There you go.
That's the beauty of it. I'm not the pro, but I still use it all, and that's the key.
John is going to be teaching our workshop today is going to be the basics. He will repeat that as well. It'll run for about 2 hours. You can ask questions throughout in the chat on the right-hand side. You can also click on the right-hand corner of his video if it is not pinned already and pin that. I'd also recommend going into speaker view because he is going to be showing you picture-in-picture working in Resolve and himself. So just maximizing that space on whatever you're watching it on. But John, take it away. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So I think the first thing I want to say, which Indy touched on a little bit, is that I am not a power user. So I'm not the kind of person who's going to get into all the minutia of the special little buttons. And I think I talked to some of you at the lighting workshop the other day that I don't know every keyboard equivalent and I don't use every panel that there is because I just don't have time to do that. I do a lot of things for Blackmagic, but I do need to know how to edit and grade and even do a little audio and even a little fusion. So it's important for me to understand the basics of the program to get through it and do work. But some of those details I just don't use. And so there's no need for me to really dig into those elements. If I need to use them, I kind of can do the research, do a little YouTube video search or ask one of my product specialists, and they'll explain to me how to use that one tool. So what we want to cover today is really the true basics of how you get into it, how you use it, how you actually edit in it or do other things, and just so you can move through your projects. So I'm going to switch over my monitor here so I can see my screen full frame. Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm going to switch over here real quick. So this is my Resolve screen right here. So it's actually my Windows machine, and I can put my little picture up here in the corner, which is fun. But I'll make myself disappear sometimes because I'm blocking things. But so this is the Resolve interface, and I want to just run through what it's made up of. And I think the beauty of Resolve is that it's not just an editing package or it's not just one thing. It does pretty much everything. So if you shoot your footage with any camera, it doesn't just have to be Blackmagic cameras. You bring it into the system, you can edit your project, you can do color, you can do sound, you can do effects if you get into it that deep. You can even mix it audio-wise and then export it without leaving the package. The older way of doing it before this kind of system arose was you would edit the project, you would export sort of what I call an EDL or an edit decision list, which another program would import, which was sort of just telling it how to put together the edit that was put together on a different package. And then you'd have to export footage and re-import footage. And anyway, it was quite a mess. And they still do that to a certain degree, but programs like this or systems like this are making it so that you don't have to actually leave the program. And something I won't touch on today, which we can get into maybe on another class because it's even more functionality, is that there is a function we call Blackmagic Cloud, which allows you to share this project that we're working on here to anybody anywhere in the world at the same time. Meaning they would be in the same project with you. They could be in Europe working with you same time on their color grading the edit while you're editing the edit. And nobody's exchanging any information. You're literally working on the same project at the same time. And so that's a really cool function called the Blackmagic Cloud that we can get into maybe at another time. But that actually expands your ability to access artists from around the world. You don't have to transfer footage around to get other people to work on your project. It's kind of cool. It goes even beyond that into cameras being able to feed footage directly into Resolve, but we won't touch on that now. So for now, let's look at this interface right now. So this is basically what there's this whole interface is made up of panels. If you look at the very bottom of the screen, if you can see my cursor, there's the first panel here is selected. There's all these panels, and you can see how it changes the screen. Andy, say in chat if everybody's seeing this or you can see this and it's making sense, because I have no actual feedback. My machine's gonna get stuck. Um,
Thumbs
but
up. That's awesome. We all see it. We got
okay,
our thumbs up too.
good. Okay, my machine is weird, so it does that every once in a while. That's not Resolve, that's my machine because it's wacky. So there are panels at the bottom, and each panel does something different, but it's all the same project. So you have a project file, and then with that project file, you can do different disciplines. So right now, I'm in the what we'd call the media page. So that's the first panel. The second one is called the cut page, which is just another version of editing, but we're not going to really address that today because it's just a different way to edit. But it's a whole different system, and I tend to use this more traditional edit function. So that's the third panel here. So this is the edit page, which is more like timeline and having clips and ins and outs and things like that. Then we have the Fusion page, which is a visual effects page. So you can do pulling mats for green screens, or you can put 3D graphics in or track things into a shot, things like that. We won't touch on this too much either because it's very complex and it's a whole nother story. And you don't really use it a lot. At times you may want to use it, but it's not something that you have to use regularly for a normal edit. The next panel is color. So it's down here. You can see that with the wheel. So this is something you would use if you wanted to color grade. And so we'd bring footage in here. We'd have nodes here, and we'd have tools that we'd use. It looks very daunting, but actually it's very simple. There's two ways to grade, which we'll touch on both ways. And both of them are very simple, but it's not really a difficult thing to understand once you see these little simple techniques I'll show you. So the next panel down the road here is Fairlight. So this is basically a big audio mixer. Again, something that we won't touch on a lot today, and you don't really need. If you just have basic audio, a few tracks, some music tracks, some audio, you can affect all that in the timeline page, in the edit page, and not have to go into here. This is for much more advanced mixing. If you have somebody who knows how to do stems, and if those terms mean anything to you, you can do that all in here. You can do something called ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. Surprisingly, I've done it on a project. I taught myself how to do it. It basically allows you to bring up a little clip, and the actor can see the clip, and it does a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and beep. And then that person, you hear the original dialogue, and the actor can speak over that, and it records that dialogue so they can match it. Perhaps if the original dialogue had too much noise, or, in my case, I had a lot of car noise in the background, so I replaced a bunch of audio, which was great. So that you can do a lot of cool stuff like that on here. But again, it's the kind of stuff that if you get into it, just look it up on YouTube. It takes some settings and such, but it is very powerful and very interesting to use if you need it. Then the last panel we have down here is basically the delivery page. So in here, at the bottom here, you would see the timeline of your edit, but it's not editable. And then you have all these controls on the left side that allow you to set your output, what you're going to set to export your project. So we'll get into a little bit more of what this looks like when you have something in the project in a second. So those are the panels. Again, media, cut page, which we won't touch on, edit, fusion, color, Fairlight, and delivery. And they're all, again, the same project. You're not going to import or export anything. And if you edit something in the edit page, when you click over to the Fairlight page, that same edit will be right there in Fairlight, and nothing will have changed. So that's kind of the beauty of the system and why it's nice to have everything in one place. So first, before we get into bringing in any projects or anything like that, or any footage, let's minimize that. And let me bring up Chrome here. So just so you know, you can download the free version of Davinci Resolve on our website here, blackmagicdesign.com, under the support button. And if you come down here, you can see all our, sorry, my machine is wacky. You can see all our various product families. And if you click in the Davinci Resolve Fusion software family, you can see at the bottom, these change into Resolve items. So on the left side, it says latest downloads. And here you see DaVinci Resolve 19.1.3. And then below it, you see DaVinci Resolve Studio 19.1.3. So the Studio is the paid version. I think it's $295. And the difference between the paid version and the free version, there's really honestly not a lot. At the level that we are all at, there's not a lot of features that you're going to miss at all that are in the studio version. If you want to pay the $295, it's pretty much a one-time fee. We have to date never charged for updates ever. So people who bought version 10 however many years ago, I guess 9 years ago now, have never paid again for the program up to 19 now and soon to be 20. So it's definitely worth the investment if you're into it. But the free version does everything you want to do as well. So don't feel obligated to buy the paid version if you don't want to pony up the cash. So as you can see down here, you have buttons for whatever operating system you use. It's very simple. Just download it. Go into your downloads, open that up and install the program. Now, if you get to installing it and it asks for a code to continue the installation, then you installed the wrong version. You installed the studio version. So just cancel that, go and re-download the non-studio version, and then you'll be fine. So that I'm looking here for notes. Nope. Nope. Anybody asking any questions, just in case that didn't make any sense? So let's go back to Resolve here. So when you first start up Resolve, you're going to see this panel. And my panel actually has stuff in it. But if you're new to Resolve, this will be pretty much blank. And what you might see is untitled project, for example. And so all this is basically the start of the project. You can come down here at the bottom and create new project if you wanted to, or you can just double click on the untitled project, assuming that it's empty. The other thing I'll note is that with any of these projects, I know I talk about the fact that you can go into the cloud, the Blackmagic cloud, and share this project to anybody around the world. I know sometimes maybe that's not practical, or you literally just want to ship off, let's say you do the edit, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to send this away to the colorist who's going to finish the project and then export the final and send me the final project, and I'm not going to take it back. So the way to do that here is to select your project. Let's say it's this one, CFA test I have selected here. And you come down here to the bottom where it says import or export. If you export that project, it's creating, ignore all this stuff, but at the bottom here in the file name and the save as type, see, it's saving the thing called a DRP. And a DRP is basically, let me see if I can, it's
And
going to save
John, just interrupt you. So if it's blurry for anyone, because I'm getting a little of the text blurry, this will be recorded on John's end as well in his switcher. So once we upload it after it's been edited, probably by the end of or next week, you'll be able to see all of the fine print. So if there's an issue there, just letting you know, we will have that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, it exports a thing called a DRP, which is basically the project. Now you'll have to send your colorist or whoever you're sending the footage as well on a separate hard drive. But it will send that. There is another way, once you're inside the program, to send an archive, which actually just sends all the information, including the footage that you use, all together packaged up in a nice little package that you can put on a hard drive and ship away. So that's even cooler, but I'll show you that in a little bit. So here you are on the project library page, and I'm just going to point out a couple of things just so you're aware. If you look at the upper left here, it says local. So that's basically on your computer. So that's the database that Resolve creates on your own computer. Next to it is a network button. You probably won't use that unless you're in some office setting that has a network where you're sharing Resolve and data across that. And then the third one is cloud. So that's the Blackmagic cloud I mentioned. And that enables you to actually share the project around the world. So people can access it wherever you want them to. So we'll get into that later. For now, let's just look at CFA test. Well, actually, let's not even look at that. Let's go down to new project. I'm going to create a new project. Waiting. Takes a second. My computer's been weird recently. Okay, so here's the project. So I'm just going to call it CFA test 2. So it'll, when the project opens up, sometimes it opens up on the cut page. So just be aware, go back to the media page. You want to start always on the media page. So one of the first things to look at here on the media page is the upper left. The upper left is actually your hard drive. So this is the information that's on your computer. So if you can see here, there's my F drive, my C drive, my D drive, etc. These are all the drives that are available on my computer. In this case, this is my actual, I have a server connected to my computer, so you can see all these different files. So from here is where you can actually see the footage that you want to bring aboard, and then you drop down. The bottom is the footage that is in Resolve. Now, when I say it's in Resolve, it's not actually in Resolve. It doesn't copy the footage. It instances, or it doesn't even instance, honestly, it references the footage. So once you move or copy or reference that footage into Resolve, you don't want to go moving it from the original place because then it'll lose it. You can relink it, but you don't want to move stuff around. So I always try to make sure you have some good structure already set up before you even edit, that you have a hard drive that is always connected to your computer, and that's where you keep your footage and things like that. So try to be aware of that, particularly if you're going to do more editing nowadays, or that's something you're into in terms of production. So if you can see on the left side of me, I have folders: production footage, reel footage, things that are organized for Blackmagic design. So I'm going to go into production footage, and I'm going to go into this Pixis. And in here, you're going to see there's 2 projects I helped shoot for the Pixis, one with a cinematographer friend of mine, William Helmut. If I go in here, you can see there's 2 folders in here. One is filled with behind the scenes footage, and one is the main unit. Okay, and if I click into the main unit, you see there's 2 folders in there. So these are stuff, again, I say, this is on my server, and it's not in Resolve at all. So down in Resolve, I want to be able to create a structure. This is the number one thing you should do before you do anything. Create a structure so that everything stays organized within Resolve. Otherwise, it becomes just imagine throwing all your stuff on the desktop of your computer, and then you can't find anything. It's the same thing. So basically, instead of folders, you create bins here. So over on the left side here, where it says master, if you right click, it says new bin. So I usually create several bins. I create a footage bin. Oh, see, I got my little wheel again. There you go. Footage. Okay, and then I create another bin, and I call it timelines. Okay, I create another one, graphics. Create another bin called audio. And one more bin called stills. Now, it depends whether those are usually the folders that I tend to find myself using graphics for when I'm doing reels for Blackmagic. You always have timelines. Obviously, you always have footage. Sometimes audio includes music and things like that. And then if there's any sort of stills that you're cutting in, you can put them in there. But this will keep everything organized. So in my situation here, I just want everything from the main unit here. So I can either just take this folder, or in my case, I'm going to take these 2 folders. Now, if I were to take these and drag them here into this space, it's going to take everything inside the folders and dump it here. So it's like taking everything from your desktop and dumping it on everything from a folder and dumping it to your desktop. So then it becomes just a mess. So what you want to do is retain your folder structure. And the way you do that is just grab those folders and take them on this side. So if I drop it here into footage, into that footage bin I made, it's going to take a second, but it's going to keep those folders, and everything is going to be nice and organized, and it's going to be in footage, and then I can know where to find it. So while that, oh, here we go. It's done already. So there you go. You can see it kind of expanded it automatically and showed me all my footage. So there's my wonderful footage, my 2 folders. That one only has 1 clip. It has a bunch of clips. So there you go. And then you can do the same with other items. Now, whatever timeline will kind of pop up in a weird spot when you create one, and we'll talk about that in a second. And you just need to come into your media manager and put it into your timelines folder. So to keep it straight. So just be aware of that. So the other things to be aware of on this page, this is a viewer here. So anything that I look at here or at the bottom. So if I take one of these clips from my hard drive and just double click it, I can see that image there. So you can see I can just scroll through images, see what I'm looking at. It's just a viewer, so you can see what you're potentially bringing in if you're not sure. So maybe to exclude certain clips or something like that. You'll also notice up here, there's a few things. There's a fit button. So if it's seems to be oversized, it's coming in the wrong resolution, you can adjust that by saying fit. In this case, my timeline resolution, which we'll talk about in a second, is set to probably HD, but this resolution is from the Pixis and it's full frame, so it's actually in a 4:3 format, so it's not quite wide enough. So that's why you see black bars. The other thing to note here is a thing that'll show you camera originals versus proxies, and I'll show you why that becomes helpful later in the timeline function. Then again, similarly, if you have audio, you can see the audio meters jumping here if there's audio on the clip. So the two channels independently plus the monitor out. So the stereo left and right there. And then everything over here, you're going to find on almost every page that we have here. So metadata, well, there's nothing to inspect because you have to select something in here. So let's go to here. Let's select, there's a clip. So if I have my metadata selected up here, you can see down here, this is all the information that is from that clip. So you can see the name, you can see what format it's in, the frame rate, the original resolution, so it's 6K, the audio information, and then various clip details here as needed. So it gets really in depth, just FYI, in terms of your metadata. You can see if you click to the right, there's lots of other information. Some of this will be blank, but some people on set might add this information, like they might put in some camera information in here. In this case, it automatically fills out what type of camera was used to shoot this. It even shows the frames per second of the shot, the shutter angle, things like that. So it's kind of cool. So metadata is really awesome there. Then next to metadata, we're looking at the upper right again here, is the inspector. Okay, and this again is going to appear everywhere, and we'll show this a little bit more in the timeline page. So this is going to let you manipulate your clip. So again, we'll get into this in timeline page, and I'll show you that more. And then this is something that you won't really have to deal with. You have the ability to actually capture directly into Resolve. This is mostly used with our film scanner. So if you're scanning film into a digital format, you can use this functionality. So it's kind of cool, but it uses other things too, but just ignore it because I never use it. You'll probably never use it too. So then that's basically the media storage page. There's other things in here too, the clone tool and things like that. I won't touch on now. You probably will never use it. So there you are. I'm going to open up real quickly to the chat if there's any questions about the media page specifically or anything I've spoken about yet. Quickly ask them and then we'll move on.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if maybe it sounds just kind of OCD, but in the I guess in the master or like where our footage is inside of Resolve,
Mm-hmm.
the media uh I don't know what that's called, the media bin, but how do you like I already had a folder structure, so I imported all of it in, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like not in order. Like, is there any way to kind of alphabetize? You know what I'm saying? Like
It,
my folder structure was in order, but now it's like out of order. So I'm just curious if there's an easy fix for that.
uh, do you mean like over here to the left side or the actual
Yeah.
media itself? The left side?
Yeah, yeah. On the left
Um,
side.
that's a good question. I don't know if there's a way to,
Okay.
I would assume. I mean, I don't, mine's not either. It's like, that is
Okay.
a good, I don't know that I've never had
Okay,
anybody
no
ask me
worries.
that. And I noticed mine's not alphabetical either. So, um, I don't know.
No worries. I'm
Yeah.
sure. figure it out. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what that's a good thing to ask because I don't know how that works. Anyway,
Then
any,
Nina also has a question. How do we bring our own media into the app?
okay, so you just need to connect it to your computer, and it will appear as one of the drives up here on the upper left. So if your computer will read it, will read the drive, just like a normal in your file folder, it'll appear here on the upper left. And then you just open it up and drag your footage in.
So sorry. Hi. Good morning, John.
Hi, good morning. Hi.
So when I clicked on my app, it does have like my computer drive, but
Mhm.
then when I click on it, like you know how you have those little sides right there and it has the arrow with your blue on the top left corner
Mhm.
if you bring your mouse up.
Here.
So when I
Yep.
click on that, nothing happens. So I was just wondering, how would I bring my media into that?
Well,
Or do
so
I
what
have
are
to
you
place it
seeing?
somewhere specifically? Yeah.
What are you actually seeing there? What does it say?
Just let me see. Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay, well we'll let you and I connect after and we'll try to figure
Okay.
that out. Okay. Yeah, because sometimes it's a more particular thing with your computer,
Okay.
which is how to sort it out. So yeah, okay. But yeah, if you have any other camera, you're going to need a reader. You know, if you have like this is from a CFast drive, so I would take the card out of the computer, you know, put it in the drive, connect the drive to my computer. As long as my computer can read it, it'll show up. It should show up as a drive to the left, and you just drag in the footage the same way I just dragged it in from here. But if that doesn't work, then there might be some other intricacies with your uh, project. Um, so good. Let's move on. So now that you've brought footage in, now you want to be able to edit it, right? So we're going to jump over to the edit page first. I'm going to look at my outline here. Okay. So I've moved far ahead here. So this is your editing panel. And right now I have something displayed here, the left and right picture. There's nothing on the right. It's gray because there's nothing in the timeline. There's actually no timeline at the bottom. And the left side is preview. So it's like that preview panel we talked about. See that right there? You can actually see the stuff you're previewing. So so right now I'm going to go around to show you everything in a second, but I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, this footage is 6K. And so obviously, unless I'm going to deliver a 6K project, I kind of need to set up my project first. So before I really do anything, I want to go up to File here. I can do it two ways. File here, Project Settings, or you can go down to the little gear on the bottom right, and that opens up Project Settings. So we're only going to do two things in this area. Am I looking at? Yeah, okay. So the two things we're going to look at here, well, one of them we're going to look at now is the timeline resolution. Okay, and so this is the resolution that we're going to want to make our project in. So this is standard HD, and that usually is what it defaults to. And I usually try to master my projects as long as I've shot my projects at this or above resolution, but at Ultra HD. That's the 4K that everybody's using these days for broadcast. If you can master at that, then it sort of future protects you a little bit. HD is kind of standard, but it's also kind of quickly becoming maybe a little old. I don't know, maybe not completely old, but it's getting there. So if you can master it Ultra HD, that's what I would recommend. But you can see down here, there's also a timeline frame rate that you can change. And that means that whatever footage you drop into that timeline, regardless of what frame rate you shot in, it will adjust to that timeline, or that frame rate. So same thing down here with video monitoring. That should stay the same, and that will adjust based on what monitors and things like that you have as well. But you shouldn't have to touch any of that stuff. Just set your timeline resolution and hit save at the bottom right. Okay, so right now, I technically have set up my project, but I still don't have a timeline. I don't have anything down here. It looks like I do, but I don't have anything. So I'm going to do something really simple. Here's my clip I started with, my first one. I'm going to scroll by grabbing this bottom, what do you call it, line or whatever, and I'm going to move forward to some place in the shot. Let's say it's right there. And I want that to be the start of the edit. Okay. So I'm going to hit I on my keyboard. Okay. And that's in. So I for in. And then now I'm going to scroll further on a little bit. Let's say just before he raises his cup, and I'm going to hit O, and that's my out point. Okay. So now I've just added an in and an out point. Very easy into the clip. Okay. So now I want to add it to my edit, right? So it's my first cut. Now, normally you'd have these buttons down here that would let you drop things in, but since I don't actually have any sort of timeline, then I can't do that. So you can just grab and drop. If you grab and drop this clip, see how I just created a timeline there. But you can also just go to File, New Timeline, and create a timeline. So you can name it something fancy like First Cut. You don't really have to change any of the settings if you don't want to. And see, it's empty timeline. So there's create. So now I have my little timeline. And remember, I told you it would create it wherever you were. So see, it's down here at the bottom, first cut, the bottom left. So I want to drag that out and put that into my timelines folder. So now it's actually in there. So that keeps me a little organized. So now, if you notice, these other buttons became open. So now I can actually drag it in or drop it in. So before we get into that, let me go around the wheel here and talk about what's available on the edit page. This gets a little complex. It says you have reached the recording limit of your plan. FYI.
Oh yeah, I was just about to ask that
Yeah.
to make sure if we would still be able to watch this later.
I'm recording it on my computer, so hopefully that'll be what you can watch later. So, okay, so now we're going around the wheel again here. So again, similar media pool. So you can turn it on and off, but that shows you your media. There's an effects button now, which if I click it, it opens up a bunch of things down here, which we can talk about later that you can add to your edit. But let's shut it off for now so we don't confuse it. There's an index button, which also does a bunch of stuff that we don't want to worry about right yet. And it's not necessary to really know. There's a sound library. Now, this is something I haven't downloaded. Again, something I don't use a ton. I haven't done a narrative creative edit in a while. So I haven't, and I got a new computer, so I didn't download the sound library. But you can download a free sound library from Davinci, from Blackmagic here, and it'll add it in here. So then you'll have sound effects that you can add in just audio pieces. So that's kind of cool. But you can also add other things in here as well. So that's neat. We'll make that go away for now. Bring my media pool back.
And John, just a question.
Yeah.
I had to step up for half a sec. Did you show them my favorite thing, which is add all selected clips to timeline?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's just like, I don't know, something I love knowing is an option if you show them a few of that, but that's it. That's my only.
Okay, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still showing them.
Fab.
So I'm going around the wheel. So hold on. Okay. So now we're coming over here. So I have sound library. You can see that's the name of the project. Up the upper right here, you see quick export. So we have a whole delivery page, remember we talked about, but also here is a quick export. You want to just quickly export the project. You click that button. You quickly set what you want it for. You can set specifically, literally, I want to set it to TikTok. It'll set the resolution for you. You can sign into your own TikTok account and export it right to it. So same for Vimeo, YouTube, etc. So that's kind of cool. But you don't have to use that. You can use the deliver page to be more specific if you want to. As we talked about, there's a mixer page, or we saw before in the front, but this will be down here. You can see these, I can't move it because there's nothing in it, but there's a little mixer there that appears beside the timeline. Again, our metadata, we have nothing selected, so there. So I selected that clip and there's my metadata again. And then there's our inspector, which again, it'll only inspect stuff that's in the timeline. So that's why there's nothing there. So now let's go ahead and add something really quickly to the timeline. So we're going to add one thing. There's a couple different ways you can do it. As I showed before, now that we have a timeline, I can just grab the picture itself, click it and drag it down and drop it on the timeline. So you notice it has a picture element and an audio element, and they're linked together because they're in sync. And then I can just grab it on the timeline and move it left and right wherever I want it to be. Also, if I want to move it to like create another video track, let's say I wanted to do two, overlapping, I can grab this and move it up. See how it splits it? So now it's on video track 2. So it doesn't, you can put another one down there. So that's really simple. I'm going to delete that. The other way to bring it in is you got it in the viewer here. You can go to these buttons right here, these 3 buttons. So this one right here is just an insert button. So if I click it, it'll just drop it right in. So wherever the playhead is, this is called the playhead, it'll drop the clip in, whatever's here. So see, I can keep dropping it in and I'll just keep moving it forward. Okay. So, and then this is overwrite. So if I had, it's not going to work really well because I don't have a clip there, but if I were to have another clip here, well, let's say, for example, I leave the playhead there and I just want to cut in earlier. If I click now, it'll overwrite from the playhead there forward. So you can, if you had a, you're just editing and you want to cut into the close up of the guy there, you can just jump in and cut it. And then similarly, if you want to replace the clip with another clip, you can do that too. So let's replace this clip with that clip. Oh, actually, I have to put the playhead back there, but there. But it's the same clip, so it's not going to count. But anyway, those are the 3 sort of ways to insert it with buttons. And there's keyboard equivalents for those too. You can see F9, F10, and F11. Another way to insert things, and as you'll learn quickly with Resolve, there's a million ways to do any one thing. It just depends which way you're accustomed to. So if you come up here and you see these 2 icons open up, this means that if you just want the picture, so let's say I just want the picture, I don't want the audio from this. If I click that and drag down, you can see I just get the picture. And then obviously, if I come up here and just do this, I just get the audio. See? And just remember, this is the delineating line here. So you can see this is going to be video only up above. So no audio will appear up above and audio only below. So that's what that's for. So now that we have a clip in the timeline, now we can see different things. Like if we go to the inspector, we're going to click the inspector again, upper right here. And you can see now, we'll come over to the video panel. There's a variety of tools we have here that we can affect that clip with. For example, we can zoom, and I might want to zoom this one because it's a 6K file, remember, and it shows the black bars. So I can zoom in and get rid of those black bars a little bit. I can also reposition if I wanted to. Let's zoom in a little bit more. I can rotate and do things like that as well, whatever I want to do. I can crop it. If you just click on the word, it opens up the functionality. So if I wanted to crop it left or right, I can do that. Let's say you're using multiple footage and has different crops, so you can apply one uniform crop over the clips. This is something people use a lot, which I don't understand, but I don't really use because I always do it manually. It's called dynamic zoom. So basically is like doing like a zoom in on its own, I guess. I don't know. Again, some of these things you can just read the manual about. I don't ever use them because I don't know. I just do everything manually. Another thing that's really handy is stabilization. So if something is a shaky clip, if it's shaky, I think this one's probably, well, okay. I forgot, I skipped over something that is really important for me to show you. Otherwise, I can't show you right now. So obviously this computer, and any computer, is going to have a hard time playing back a full resolution 6K Blackmagic RAW file. It's just too much information. So when Blackmagic cameras they shoot, they also create proxy files at the same time. So they're creating low res or small resolution HD files that go along. They're basically matching files that go along. So I have the luxury of being able to switch to a proxy file on this clip so that I don't have the problem of playing back. So if you go in the upper left, or this kind of up here, the left of the viewer, you see this little, it says HQ. If I click this button, I can change this to prefer proxies. So now you can see down on the clip here, it says PXY instead. So now that clip is using the proxy, and see how now it plays. Remember, we were having trouble playing it before. Now, if you want to just do that with everything, so I'm going to change that back to prefer camera originals. If you go to the top timeline, the top menu area, and go to playback and click down, it says proxy handling here. Just change the whole thing to prefer proxies. Now, anything you bring in, if there is a proxy for it, it will use that proxy, and then you don't have to worry about playback issues. It'll play back fine. Now, you ask me, how do you make proxies? Davinci Resolve comes with a proxy generator. So let me, actually, it's already right there. So if you install Resolve, you're going to get this right here, this little proxy generator. So let me do this. So I'm creating a little folder here called test2. And so in the proxy generator, all you have to do, and you can do this, this is great because remember we talked about creating a drive. Let's say you have a drive somewhere that you use for all your footage. I hope you back up that drive too, by the way, if you're using OneDrive. But if you're using a drive for all your footage, and so you have a folder that says footage, and then inside there you have folders for each of your projects. That's great. That's fine. You can point this proxy generator to that footage folder, the parent folder, and it will create proxies for anything you put into that folder inside the folders. So you don't have to worry about like pointing this to every folder. So if you, so right now, if you can see right here, I'm pointing this right now to the original test folder. So I'm going to just remove that. So if I add this here, and I'm going to point this now to the test2 we just made, okay, and select that folder. So now it's pointing to test2, and I'm just going to hit start. So now that's just sitting there. It's not doing anything because there's nothing in that folder. And there's my little test2 folder right there, and see it's empty. But if I take something like, let's take something that's not too big, like this little Austria time lapse, and I drop it into here. I put it into test2. Uh-oh, here's my big fancy reveal. It might not be a big enough resolution. It might think it's a proxy already. We will just call that as an example. I think it has to be a higher resolution, but if you drop a high resolution file into that folder, it'll automatically generate a proxy out of that. And so what that proxy folder kind of looks like, let me show you. I go into here. So if we're looking, let's not go there. Let's go here. So see how this is the William Helmut main unit footage that we're looking at in Resolve. There's camera A. You can see we don't see it in Resolve, but there's a proxy folder that's already generated, and there's all the proxies. So basically, that's what you would see in the file folder, but in Resolve, you don't see that. It knows automatically to switch between the two if you ask it to. So we'll go back here. So that's why if you see in Resolve, next to each clip, it says PXY. That means it's that you're looking at its proxy right now. Now, you will ask, does that mean when you deliver, it's going to deliver proxy resolution? Actually, no. Resolve knows both when you deliver, but also when you color grade, that you obviously want to color grade and deliver using the full resolution files. So it'll automatically switch back to the camera originals for those processes. So even if it's displaying a lower resolution on your monitor, it already knows that you need to grade and you need to deliver with full resolution. You can force it to use proxies only, but it knows if you don't do that, that it will use the camera originals. So that's good.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to the proxy generator again?
It installs with Resolve.
Okay.
So I just searched for it. So in my case, if I quit
Like
it, in this case, I just searched for proxy generator in my
Oh,
computer, and
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was already up because I was playing with it. So, but yeah, if you install Resolve, it'll have it too. So there you go. So that's that process. So Indy, honestly, I don't ever use the add all clips because I think it creates a horrible mess because but what's the
Horrible mess then. I don't know why I love it so much. I guess I like if I'm watching all the takes, I just like cutting down each individual take to like the parts I like and then finding it in. But whatever, each to their
well,
own.
I think that I mean that's a great example of there's a million ways to do stuff in Resolve, and it everybody does it a different way, and that doesn't what Indy's talking about is just the way that she likes it and she's comfortable with. And my response is, oh, it creates a mess. Well, I could be wrong. I mean, her way could be cool, and I just never do it. But I keep it pretty basic, and that's just the way. Tell me what it is, Indy.
Well, we don't need to. I think
No,
the
just tell me.
the best way. I just, if I have 3 takes of something and I want to watch them all sequentially, I'll add them to my timeline. And then say I know I'm cutting to other footage or B-roll, I at least have it. I like at least having those versions of the take so that I can then like be like, oh, I like this from the first take. So because I'm not an editor, it's just like quicker for me to have them all there and ready. And then I can cut or put something on, the second channel for video rather than
Okay, well, how do you add them? Do you add them on? Is there an automated way?
yeah, right click.
What?
Just right click on it and hit, I can't read your thing, but it says add all clips to timeline, add selected clips. Yeah, the first one. Create new timeline or add to timeline. Yeah.
Create new timeline using selected clips.
Yeah, or import. Yeah. But anyway, it just adds it all there. And then I like to watch sequentially sometimes and then cut the stuff I don't like and then keep the stuff I do like, especially for like, jump cuts for like YouTube videos and stuff. Anyway, that is very specific to me.
I'm a very lazy editor, and also 90% of the time I've shot the stuff that I'm cutting. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I know that take was bad. It's only the last 2 ones that were probably decent. So
and we have a question as well.
Okay.
Go for it.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. While you were talking about just reading your computer reading the information so that the playback can be smoother. What about how do you deal with the cache files? Because it feels like that also will make the project move slower. It like eats up a lot of the gigabytes on the hard drive, and I didn't know exactly how to deal with that without ruining your footage or losing your footage.
I've never had an issue with cache as long as I'm always using proxies. So you're using proxies, but you're still having cache problems?
No, I didn't know about the proxies, but what would happen is that as I would go along and edit, I would check the cache files, and then I would optimize media to help the playback run smoother. But it seemed like to eat up a lot of space on my computer, so I didn't know if there's a way to minimize that.
I mean, optimize media. So what he's talking about is that there's 2 ways you can create a proxy file, which is actually literally creating a file. Or you can do a thing if you right click on a clip and it says generate optimized media here. You can create an internal, it's like an internal proxy without being a proxy. So it basically is creating a super efficient yet full information file of the clip. So the problem with that is that it's not very small. It's sort of like a still large version, but it runs more efficiently on your computer. So I think that's your problem, is that try to do proxies instead of optimized media, because optimized media will take up more space and fill up your computer quicker.
Got it.
Can I help you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then if you're selecting a clip here and you want to you're like, oh, there's no proxy for that one, you can select the clip and then go up to File and, oh, sorry, I think it's in, yeah. So you generate optimized media or generate proxy media, but proxy's more efficient. So just real quickly, we're going to go back into the menu system. If you go into the Davinci Resolve upper left and go into preferences, this is something you should also check. If you go under system, actually, no, I'm in the wrong place, but never mind. Let's go back to our project settings. So again, just to remind you, the gear in the bottom right, or if you go to File, Project Settings, you want to make sure that if you scroll down this page, I lied, there were actually three things you need to adjust here. So the second one is under Working Folders, at the bottom of the Master Settings page, you want to make sure these are set somewhere, you know, not that has no space. So basically the proxy generation location, which will answer a little bit of your question with the space problem, you know, running out of space on your computer. And then same thing, gallery skills and cache clip. So you want to try to make sure that you don't just have like, you know, barely any information on your computer. I mean, ideally for an editing computer, you at least have, I mean, a lot of storage, or you at least always connect a drive. You know, you use one of these kind of like terabyte external drives that are always connected. And that's the one that you use when you edit. And that's the one that you use for proxy generation, things like that. The only key there is you have to always have it connected to the computer when you turn on Resolve. Because if it's not connected, then Resolve will freak out because it can't find those locations. But it's Resolve, or pretty much any editing program, any post-production program, is they're going to always take a lot of space, no matter what you do. They use a lot of RAM in the computer. They use a lot of hard drive space. They do a lot of things like caching clips and having different kind of optimizing ways of doing it. So, you know, if your computer is pretty full or really old and slow, you might have some issues. So Resolve is probably one of the more efficient ones for older computers, but you're still going to have issues if your hard drive's full. So you want to make sure that you are on top of that. You don't let it be something that becomes an issue, because you're going to be chasing that problem always. Just better to buy a little hard drive for a couple $100 and make that your production drive, I guess would be the thing. So a few other tips in terms of this edit page. I mean, we were talking about over here on the inspector. We were going over some inspector things. Again, like I said, there's the zoom. You can zoom things. You can crop. There's all sorts of little things you can play with. We talked about the dynamic zoom, which I never use. Composite, which is just if you have one clip over another, you can mess with how that looks. There's speed change abilities. You can change the speed of a clip. So that's kind of cool. That stabilization thing, which is really just, I'm gonna try to show you. So if I'm gonna get rid of this clip, we're gonna bring it up here again. I'm gonna explain something really quickly. You notice I only have one viewer right now. So before, I think if I do this, or maybe if I do that, yeah, there you go. So see how I hid some stuff. Now I have two viewers. So now if I drag this down here, you're going to see two different images. So this is what I call preview, and this is program. So, or this is source, okay, and out. So this basically on the left side is the clip that you've just, we'll go into the media pool. This is the clip that's on in the system. So if you're like looking for a clip to edit, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to find, oh, I like that one. I'm going to make that the in there and the out there. Okay. The clip on the right is what's in the timeline. So that's what you're showing in the timeline. So if we do a little edit here, let's go back and look at that first clip. Remember, we did that little cut here. I still have notice my ins and outs are still there. So we're going to have him lift his cup. Let's have him do that. Let's have him start here. That's my in. He's going to lift his cup. Okay, just before it gets to his mouth, we're going to make that the out. Okay, I'm going to use the insert button here and drop that into the timeline. Okay, now I'm going to go to that other take, which I think is here. Let's take this one. Okay, I'm going to scroll. You can see how lazy an editor I am here. So I'm going to scroll. Okay, we know that he kind of come around. and he raises his cap. Okay, so it's somewhere about there in, okay, and great. We're just going to take that as the out point. Okay, now I'm going to drop that in there again with my insert. Or no, maybe I'm just going to drag that down here. So there you go. I just did my first edit. I'm so excited. Very cool. Wow, John's so talented. So, but I don't like this one for some reason. It's a little shaky for some reason. It's really not very shaky, but let's say it's a little shaky. If I want to, I can stabilize that, which is really cool. But we'll get to that in 1 second. The point is here is that if you have a big enough monitor, or the monitor set to a big enough resolution, you can have this kind of preview program thing. Now, I think I was joking with my editing or my Resolve product specialist, and because I thought they had removed it, and I said, "Oh, is that did they remove that because it's not cool anymore or something like that?" And he said, "No, it's just because it doesn't fit on the screen. So if you have too many things visible, let's say, for example, I open up my inspector again, you can see it just goes to one screen. And that's because it doesn't have the room to show two screens. Now, if I had dual monitors, I could display it on dual monitors and things like that, which would be cool. But we're just dealing with one monitor right now. So it's limited to one. So now the deal is if I click in on the media in the media pool, that's what I'm going to see on the monitor. So now I can set my ins and outs. But if I click down on the timeline, I'm going to see the timeline on the viewer. So there's my edit. So it works either way, whichever you're comfortable with. If you happen to have a big enough monitor and you're seeing both and you don't want to see both, you just want to see the one like we were showing, the upper right, you see this little box right here? That's right now showing 1 and 2. So right now I'm showing 2, but if I want to see 1, I click that and there's my 1. So I do usually like 2. It's just old school, but that's me. So anyway, here we are back with our 1 view, and we're going to look at this clip. And if you wanted to stabilize it, really handy sometimes. Stabilizing takes a little, you have to play around with it a little bit because there's different kinds of stabilization. So if I have my clip selected, you can see the orange box around it. And there's different kinds of stabilization: perspective, similarity, translation, and camera gyro. That's if the camera has a gyroscopic gyroscope inside of it, and that camera is saved in that metadata we were looking at. It'll use that to stabilize the camera. Our Blackmagic cameras have that, so it does help with that. But let's just use perspective, or actually let's use similarity for now. And then these cropping ratio and stuff like that, you can just leave default. Zoom should be selected because what it'll do is to adjust for any motion left and right or whatever it has to adjust to stabilize, it'll zoom in slightly, or sometimes not slightly, sometimes a lot. It's just if the motion's really crazy, it has to zoom in more, but you leave zoom selected for that. So all you do is go to the beginning of the clip and hit stabilize. It does a quick little process. And then see how it zoomed in just a touch? And now if I hit play, it's a little more stable. This is a bad clip to show you, but that's exactly how you do it. And then each time you want to try something different, let's say you want, oh, I don't know if that worked. Let's try perspective. Let's go to the start of the clip again, change the setting and stabilize again. And then you can play it and see if that worked. That's all. So that's kind of something you would play with. How do you make sure that your files are exported as a proxy? If you're using a proxy generator, it's automatically doing that. If you're creating a proxy through Resolve, it'll create a folder that says proxy wherever the original folder is. And then how would you clear the cache after you're done with the project? I think when the cache is actually in a physical folder. So wherever that, if you look under that, again, we talked about that project settings folder and scroll down here under master settings, see cache files location. That's actually your cache files. But you don't want to delete that because anytime you go back into the project, it's going to look for those. If you're done with the project completely, you can clear that out and it won't be a problem. It would regenerate them the next time you open the project. But it takes a while, so don't do it until you're done with the project. That would be the best bet. I was answering a couple questions that were in chat in case you were wondering where those came from. So back to the inspector. So that's stabilization. And then there's other things in here: lens correction, retiming, If you have a low resolution clip and you want to bring up its resolution, you can do a thing called super scale, which makes it's like blowing it up basically, but it's a really good version of blowing it up. So, and similarly under audio, there's other settings. So if you're going to adjust the audio levels, you can pan it left and right. This is a really cool tool, voice isolation. Gosh darn it. I think I need more coffee. If there is noise, so let's say you shoot, in a train station, and so there's a lot of ambient noise, but the person's talking to camera, this will actually get rid of all of that. I mean, I'd say 99% of it. It's really good. So it's a great tool if there's too much ambient noise around that'll help you focus in on the actual person who's speaking to the camera. That's the dominant voice on the camera in the room. So definitely play with that. It's an awesome tool. I usually try to, even if it works really well at 100, sometimes it seems too fake. I kind of back it down a little bit to, 70 or 60 or 50 or whatever works best, so it doesn't feel too fake, because a little room noise is nice, but it's pretty awesome. And then there's other tools here I've never really used. I'm not sure what music remixer is, but it sounds cool. If you want to make somebody sound like Mickey Mouse or a really deep voice, you can use the pitch. And then there's, again, equalizing. If you're trying to mess with the ups and downs, you can just turn that on and you can see I can do pitch stuff. It's all stuff that I've used randomly, but you don't use it a lot. So that's the audio settings there. And basically a lot of the audio settings are super simple versions of what you'd find on Fairlight page. The Fairlight page is like the advanced version of all that stuff. So with all of that stuff, I will say that particularly we'll use it for video. If I'm on this clip here, this first clip, and we talked about zooming in. So let's say I'm starting my image here and I want to zoom in by the end of the clip. I can actually keyframe this, so I can actually animate this. So I go to my first frame. Here I am, my playhead's at the beginning, and I've zoomed into kind of where I want to start. I click this little dot here at the end. Can you guys see that? Circling it with my cursor. So if I make it red or orangish red, that means I set a keyframe. So now if I go to the end of the clip, I'm going to go back one. So that's my end. And now let's say I just want to zoom in to about there. Now, because I've already got a keyframe at the beginning and I changed the zoom, it already added a keyframe at the end. So now it's already zooming in for me. So that's a really cool thing. Everything is animatable like that. I can animate the position, the rotation, crops. I can even animate the volume. So you can see the little dot is right there. The pan, things like that. You can almost pretty much animate almost everything, which is really nice and handy to have. So anyway, I'm going to take a breath because I want to transition into some slight other things that are really fun to know and important to know in editing. Any quick questions about where we are right now? See, this is the basic class, by the way. I'm trying to be really basic. And these are literally the minimum of what I use pretty much all the time to just edit basic stuff, even just like the Blackmagic Davinci Resolve reel or some of these behind the scenes videos I do and things like that. This is all stuff from that. I do have a project I'm going to show you towards the end that I did edit just so you can see a full project as it lays out in Resolve with multiple tracks and stuff. Okay, I'm assuming everybody's there. I can't see Zoom, but Indy will tell me if everybody's dropped off and it's just me talking to myself. So down in the edit page, again, we're going to look down here on the timeline. I want to kind of talk over that. Obviously, the upper left here, this number, that's the time code. Okay, and that always starts at hour 1, so that'll just kind of count up as you go. That's also mimicked in the upper right of the viewer. You can see right there. Okay, this number right here is I think that's the frame. I don't know. I never keep those two. It doesn't matter. You can figure that out. So time code down here. And then these up here, as we talked about this being separate. So we have a high, upper level, this little gray separator, and a lower level. So the upper level is video tracks. The lower level is audio tracks. And then each one has little controls. So you can see there's a little lock right here. So if you want to lock this track so it doesn't get changed, it grays it out. If you want to disable it, you can disable it here. So let's disable the one you can see. So that just takes it out completely. See, it doesn't even show the picture at all. And the same things work for the audio side. So you can lock the audio, and you can, rather than disable, you can mute the audio. Now, just be aware that if you lock the video and try to move the audio, see, it was in sync and locked to it, but now you've just pulled it away because the audio was not locked, but the video was. So you got to just be careful you don't mess up your sync, because everything's synced together when they're linked together like that. But that being said, if you want to unlink them, see, right now they're linked together. If you click this button right here, it's a little chain thing. It unlinks the two. So now when I deselect them and select back, you can see now my video is deselected from my audio. And then if I want them again, I select them again and link them back. So that's handy if you want to slip the sync, or if something's not in sync, or I don't know. That's about the biggest reason you might use it for, is really slipping the sync and things like that. The other thing here, since we're in this area, we're talking about these buttons. The one to the left of it looks like a little magnet. See how every time I get close to the edge, it's kind of clicking over my playhead? The nice thing about that is that it doesn't make me hunt for the edit area, the spot where the next clip might go. So that's just a magnet tool. So if I shut that off, I can then move kind of in the more, I can get down to like frame, tiny little motions near that edit. Whereas when I turn the magnet on, it's going to click into that spot. So it's handy until it's not. So you can turn it on and off as needed. So that's kind of cool. And it works as well with the clip. So if I'm moving this clip, you notice as I move the clip closer to the other one, it's going to jump over. So it knows, because of the magnet, that you want to join that together. But if I don't want to join that together and I just want to get it close, I shut the magnet off and then move it. So there you go. It didn't jump. Now, if I turn the magnet back on, it's not going to jump over unless I move it. There you go. So be aware that also when you move clips, I can move it too far. See, I'm pushing my clip over. So I'm eating into the other clip. I can overwrite the middle of the clip. I can grab the ends of the clips and drag them. And you can see how many frames on the little panel that opens up. It's kind of cool. If my two clips are touching each other, I can put the cursor between them, and I can grab the edit and drag the edit. So then I can adjust that without creating a gap in between. Another little thing here, let's do it like this. So I'm going to put in this crazy shot. And I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. So now I got these 3 shots in here, and I don't like this shot anymore. So I'm going to delete that. So there's 2 ways to delete. I mean, there's probably more than 2 ways, but 2 ways I'll tell you about. One of them is backspace on your keyboard. If I backspace, it just deletes the clip, okay? Which is fine, and it may be just right what you need, but what it does is leaves a gap. Which you say, yes, what's the big deal about the gap? Well, if you don't want the gap, if you hit delete, it draws the footage over. So that's really handy. I'm going to do that again so you can see. So I select the clip and hit the actual delete button, and it pulls the clips over from the right and closes the gap, which is really cool. It's really cool when you just want to pull everything over and not have to remember the keyboard equivalent to select everything to the right, which I could tell you what it is, but it's complex. It's great, but it also does kind of, if there's overlapping clips, it might mess them up a little bit. So just be aware of that. The undo button is your friend in that situation if you find that it messed something up, but just be aware that it might tweak something that you don't want tweaked. So just be aware of that. Okay. So we're still moving to the right here on this. So we already talked about these items right here, right in the middle. Okay, we're going to go to these ones to the left. This is where we get a little fun. So this one, razor blade, if you click that, just real quickly, this is the cursor that's normally selected and it looks the same, you can see. So that's just a selection cursor. So it allows you to select things. And then you have these ones to the right. I'm going to start the one the furthest to the right, which is a razor blade. And as you can imagine, it's a razor blade. So if I want to just cut out right there, you just click it and it creates a razor blade. The thing you remember is that it stays a razor blade. So if you think, oh, now I'm going to move this clip over, it's just you're going to find yourself, oops, I'm cutting myself repeatedly. I believe there's yeah, if you hit A, so I'm still my razor blade and I hit A, I go back to my selection cursor. So I'm so lazy. This is how lazy I am. I'm editing and I use the razor blade. I still go up with the cursor and hit the cursor button because I can't be bothered to remember that it's A to switch back. So that's literally how lazy I am.
So is the razor blade kind of like acting as a split, or like it just cuts those two parts, or it shaves off like something in there?
It just will cut right there. It'll just cut that same clip right at that spot, but the two clips are still independent pieces of the same clip. So if I wanted to grab that in and re-expand that out, all that information is still there.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So all this stuff is like non-destructive. So everything's, that's where the term non-linear comes from, really, is that every clip is just a reference. It's just a data point. So if I put an in point here and an out point here, all the data left and right still exists when I drag it. My computer. My computer got stuck. Okay, there we go. So all the data still exists in that clip, left and right. So if now I wanted to show more of that data, I can grab that and pull that left and right, even though that in and out point was set there. So that data left and right is still there. So when I'm cutting it, all I'm doing is putting a razor blade there and moving. I'm basically moving this endpoint over, at least as far as that one clip is, or I'm severing it and making two clips out of it. That's really what the razor blade's doing. So that's that. This piece right here is called dynamic trim mode. The weird thing about some of these is they have different functions depending on where your cursor is. So I don't think I've ever figured out dynamic trim mode. Yeah, I don't really know dynamic trim mode. I think it's something, but I use this one a lot, the trim edit, because see, when you put the cursor over the middle, it allows you to shuffle. And you can see the three screens open up. So it'll show you the left and right edit, and then it'll let you show, or it'll show you the edit. Okay, let me do this. Here, okay. So now it's properly. So you can see in the bottom, it shows me the last frame of the previous edit, the first frame of the next edit, and the first and last frame of my edit I'm moving. So I can kind of move it around and find, like, let's say I want to match frame that. I can move it around without actually having to drag handles and things like that. That's what this trim mode is really good for. Now, if I go to like the end, I can do the same on the end by just grabbing the end, and it pulls the edit with me, as opposed to if I do it like this, then I leave a gap. See what I mean? If I do it this way, it actually keeps the edit coming with me. So that's the nice thing about trim mode. So that's really cool. So trim mode, I will you're going to have to look up dynamic trim. I never use it, I guess, so it's not a problem. A couple other little things over on the right side, which are usable now and then. This is just, they're kind of various markers and tags. So a lot of people use these for notes. So if I have somebody look at this timeline to give me notes, they might put the cursor in a certain spot and hit M for marker. And see, it creates a little blue marker right there. And then you can actually double click that. You can name that marker, like maybe the name of the person who's making the note. And then I can say, I love this. My name is not Jim, FYI, but see how it keeps exactly where the time code or where the position is and things like that in the timeline. So that's now somebody else can come by, especially if you use Blackmagic Cloud and the shared format, they can come by and look at notes, like the editor can come and see what the notes are. Now, if you don't have a clip selected, it'll actually add that note and that marker to the overall timeline. So the difference is if I move this clip now, see the note stays with it, as opposed to that marker will stay on the timeline time rather than on the marker, on the clip. So you just have to choose which one you want to use there. So moving to the right here, these little magnifying glasses, this is how you kind of zoom in and out on your timeline. This one is going to show everything in the edit as it exists. I think that's a full extent zoom. I think that's what it is. We'll try them each, yeah. Okay, yeah. So this one shows, I just don't have a big edit, so it's hard to tell sometimes. This one shows the entire edit. So if you're just trying to figure out where you are in the edit, this one will show the entire edit. This one, if I'm working in a particular area, let's say I'm trying to work on this area, if I click this second one, it'll kind of zoom in on that area for me. So that it kind of lets me focus in on that area. And then this final one is basically custom. So either I can click on that, but what it's doing is showing me what this thing is doing. So this thing is just letting me zoom in and out wherever I want to do. And I can go all the way down to pretty much one frame. So this is like one frame edit here. So now if I go, there's the full edit. There's me just kind of in an area, but now I want to get into that one frame. There's one frame right there. And then I want to zoom back out of that one frame. I can come out again. So those are what zoom modes. Then over here, obviously, is the volume. So if you don't hear anything, check that. Make sure your volume is up and it's not selected. That's that. On the viewer mode, you'll see, here's the viewer. So we're looking underneath that. There's a couple little things. This button here will kind of give you different options on the screen. So if you're trying to transform the screen, remember we talked about the items over here, the zoom and such, you can do them physically. You can actually do them by touching with your mouse by over here. So transform would be here. So you can actually grab the handles and do it there. And you can see over here in the zoom, it's actually making the changes there. Okay, and similarly, you can crop. You can see the changes over there. So that's what, so these are various effects. You can dynamic zoom, you can see that in action, and then you get into some more complex things that you may or may not know. Smart reframe is kind of fun because it'll adjust your framing for you, which is kind of cool. But again, I never use that. So, so there's me back to my normal. Coming to the right, you'll see this button. You're kind of probably wondering, you know, here I am on the clip. I'm grabbing this little button here, or I can grab it on the timeline. I'm grabbing the playhead to zoom. Well, what if I want to be like really precise? You can actually come down here on this little button and just move the playhead really precisely right underneath the viewer. You can see me moving it just ever so slightly. So that's what that's for right there, as well as your normal play, stop, loop, things like that. Somebody, nope. So that's what that is. I don't even know what this is. Oh, yeah, these are part of the, again, some high-end functionalities that I never use. Some things in here too to be aware of, again, that are fun to use. If you go in here, you can do things like stacking your timelines. So if you're working on 2 timelines, you can actually have them stacked. So if I have a first cut there and I put the second, you can see I have them both timelines right here accessible. You can also have them displayed on top of each other, which I'm trying to remember how to do that. Oh, I think it's over here. So here I can select, have a timeline on the bottom and a timeline on the top. So if I want to drag footage from one to the other. So sometimes I'll use that, like if I have a bunch of footage like a music video and I want to have selects, this is my select timeline up here. And then I'm like, okay, I'm working down here and oh, I like this. I want to use that shot here. I'll drag it down here, so that becomes a handy way to see multiple timelines up there. So that's a couple of things there. And also if you're just trying to adjust your video track height, this is the panel to do here. So you can make audio bigger so you can see waveform. You can make your video track bigger or smaller here too as well, to your preference. All right. Ready to move on to color? Anybody still there? All right. So we're going to jump over into the color page. So again, we're down here. And here's our color page. Now you notice that because I have stuff in the timeline now, before it was blank. So now obviously we have something in the viewer and we have what we call a node. So this is a node. So as you go around to the different levels, the areas, again, are very similar with some additions. So this one has a gallery, which I'll show you what can be used there. This one has a selection of LUTs that are included, lookup tables. This has a similar media pool, which you don't use really there. It has a timeline for clips. So this is the clips that are in the timeline in your edit. It'll show right there in order. So rather than a timeline, like showing all the footage, it actually shows each as a thumbnail. And then you keep coming around, another quick export. You can show a timeline, but it's sort of more in a kind of that linear fashion there. These are our nodes. So turn on and off. This is our effects panel here, which is already on. You can turn it on and off. And then a light box, which will just show this, in this case, are clips. So that's the top portion. So for now, I'm going to hide that so we have as much space as possible. So in the bottom portion is your tools. So I know it's very daunting, but really there's only a couple areas that you need to worry about. And I know anybody on this thing who's graded before is probably going to have a lot to say about this, but there's 2 things I'm going to tell you. So this is a raw Blackmagic raw file. So the raw files look the same in that they look washed out. Okay, and what that means is that it's a capture of the sensor that has all the information the sensor can capture. So that tends to look washed out because it's got more information than is actually viewable by the monitor and the display device. So what you're trying to do, and this is what a LUT does, this is why you might have heard of the term a LUT, the LUT kind of defines a viewing area. So a level of brightness and darkness, contrast, and color that you want to see out of that image. So it kind of defines a box, an area to be able to see. So that's what we do in color grading, is we're basically kind of squeezing that down to a spot. So when you get, there's two ways, I keep saying. I'm going to show you the way so you understand what you're doing. And it really doesn't involve more than just a few little things. Okay, first is you're going to have 3 nodes. So the first node here is we're going to call this a balance node. Okay, and it's always good to just kind of name these. So if I right click on a node, okay, I can go to node label, and I'm going to call this balance. Okay, and so with every node, you want to try to like make sure that it's got a range, that you're taking advantage of the full range of what's there. So what I do is, if you look to the right, this waveform monitor is basically showing you what's available in information from the brightest, which is at the top, the 1023, to the darkest, which is 0. So you don't want anything below 0, and you don't want anything over 1023. So 1023 is white, like blown out white crazy. And below zero is what they would call absolute black, which is bad too. It's just as bad as blown out. So you want to be in between. So this first node is basically creating an image that is kind of opened up a little bit and usable for the next two steps. So and the other part you use, and this little arrow here will help you see it, is what we call the parade. And the parade is basically just showing you the color. So red, green, and blue. And what you want them to do is to kind of be equal. And each image here kind of represents what you're seeing. So it's kind of hard to figure out, but like this is the car area, and this is the guy, and this is the tree. So anyway, it doesn't really matter, but as long as you, so this is, you're just trying to color balance it out, but it's hard to really tell right now, and it looks pretty balanced. You're just trying to make sure that the blue isn't like way down here and green. The image would look really horrible if it was, but you would neutralize it out here. So the way you do this, if it were bad, is you make sure this button here is selected. Quite frequently it's already selected, but this is, make sure that's turned on. And here you got, it's called curves. And here you have this line, and you can see this graph represents a similar thing as over here. And then over to the middle right, you see Y, R, G, and B. Okay, so R, G, and B are what we're looking at here on the scopes, red, green, and blue. So if I select, in this case, I'm going to select blue. The line turns blue. And you can see maybe my blue might be a little lower than my red and green in this area. So I'm just going to take the top part and just pull it up just a little bit. Just like that. Tiny little bit. Now, usually this is an undramatic example. Usually it's quite a bit more, but what you're just trying to do is make sure that it's neutral color. So we're going to let that go for now because this is a tough clip for that. So I'm going to go back to my waveform. And here we are right there. And now I want to use my Y, because Y is just the luminance. Okay, so it's the brightness and the darkness. So grab this Y, remember, and everything at the top, this top piece is bright, and everything at the bottom is dark. So basically, this is highlights, and this is shadows. And in the middle is midtones. So basically, I'm just going to grab the top and see, I want to take these highlights. These highlights represent that sky, but they shouldn't be down in the middle. They should be up close to the very top. So I just want to take this, oops, and bring these up closer to the top. Not all the way to the top. I want to make sure that there's no values above that. So they're about that. And then I'm going to take this, now I want to drag this back down so my darks are down. So you see what I'm doing is basically expanding. I'm expanding the image. So I have a lot more value to play with. So it's not just like a kind of washed out thing in the middle. It's actually, I got a more light to dark range to play with. So I'm balancing the image there. So that's it. That's all you do on that realm. So basically giving yourself some more range. So now I'm going to right click on the node and say add node. And you're always pretty much adding a serial node. I don't know what that means. It's just, it is. Okay, so now this one is going to be brightness and contrast. Okay, so I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to node label, and I'm going to call it BC. Okay, so now I want to set the brightness and contrast of the image. So if you come over to the left side, you see this lift, gamma, gain. Just ignore offset for now. See these wheels with all the colors? Just ignore all the color wheels. We don't mess with those. Underneath them, you see these dials. See these dials here? Okay, so think of lift as shadows, gamma as midtones, and gain as highlights.
Sorry,
Don't think of those.
how do I get to that window? I'm not seeing it.
You mean on your own computer, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, just above, just below the image, I'm not sure, I don't know your computer, you'll see a little camera and then a little, click the third one that looks like the wheel that does not say HDR.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. So anyway, you have these three dials underneath from left to right that under lift, gamma, gain. So instead of lift, we're saying shadow. Under gamma, we're saying midtones. And under gain, we're saying highlights. That's what they are. So shadow, I want to add shadow in. It's too washed out, right? So I'm going to dial this wheel just down until I get more shadow to where I like it. So I'm going to make it like somewhere in there. Okay. And we're just ignoring the waveform now. Don't even look at that. I'm going to pop the highlights up, get a little bit of highlight in there. And now maybe get them a little bit more mid-tone, rolling that up just slightly. Okay, so that's it. So there you go. I kind of set a brightness and contrast that I like. Okay, now I'm going to right click. I'm going to add a third node, serial. Okay, and now this one's going to be called color. We'll just call it color for now. So this is basically the saturation. So the first thing about a raw clip is that the saturation is way down. You notice this is like almost like an orange car, and you can barely tell it's orange. So at the very bottom of this panel, underneath that gain wheel, you see sat. So if you put your cursor over the 50%, you see it turns into an arrow left and right. You can just grab that and slide that to the right and roll in some saturation. Don't want to go too crazy, but you can kind of get it a little bit more so it's a little prettier. And there you go. There you go. You're done. So, like I said, that's all you need to do for a basic grade. And that kind of sets a basic tone for your image. Yeah, I'll remind you, this is what it looked like when we started. Okay. And now this is what, after just doing those 3 simple nodes, you got that. So it's not as daunting as everybody thinks. And from there, you can get super creative. And there's a lot of tools, some of which I will mention briefly, but I don't want to get too crazy in it. But the important thing is you do everything on another node. So if I wanted to add something else now, I would right click on color, add another serial node, and then go ahead and add stuff. Every effect best if you do it on a separate node. So let me just show a couple things that you may be interested that could be cool for filmmaking. So go under effects, and you can see there's a million different things here. But some of them are, like if you go down here, there's film grain, there's camera shake, there's vignette. So like if I wanted to add a vignette, I would grab that tool, drop it on that new serial node, and see it automatically already adds one. Now I can go in here and tweak it. So I always go to advanced, I leave it in oval, I give it more of an anamorphic look, and bring down the size a little bit, soften it up a little bit more. So yeah, something like that, So use a million tools like that you can add. And it's just fun to play with them. There's, all sorts of things here. The other thing Resolve is known for is like beauty effects and face refinement. So there's tools in here that will actually track the face and refine faces and stuff. You can also do really cool effects with that. So even though it may be like for making, doing a beauty pass, you can also crank those settings the opposite way and make, do horror films and stuff like that. Some really cool effects on that. But yeah, there's a million different things here that you can play with that Resolve is really good at. So just a few notes. You can shut off any node by hitting the number. It just shuts the node off. It doesn't delete it. So you can just shut it off. Similarly, as you saw here, if you on any panel, if you want to, because sometimes the color grade slows everything down. So if you want to just speed it up and get rid of the grade, you can click this button right here and it makes the color grade go away. So if I go back to my timeline, you see my color grade is applied here. So if I just deselect it, I can deselect it there. But if I go back to my color grade, I can turn it back on. So there you go. The other tools in here, again, I'm just going to like mention them because there's like too many. You can track and stabilize. You can do what we call power windows. So let me reset this one. You've probably heard the term power windows, but if you wanted to take an area and just define it down This is again not a good. So let's say I just wanted to track something to his head. I create that. You can see in this node over here how everything's gray except for there's a dot. Well, that dot is his head. So it's saying that it's only going to affect his head. Now I can do anything, like I can go under tracking here and I can actually have that track his head. So for example, I can now go in and with these crazy color wheels or whatever I want to do, I can affect the color or whatever of just that area. I can soften that area. I can do whatever I want to do. That's the great thing about power windows. When you see big time color projects that are, feature films, they use power windows like crazy. They'll isolate the sky or little areas and do little highlights. They use those all the time. So that's a really cool feature. But there's a lot of different things. One of the other things that I like that people use is we go back to this curves function, but there's other kinds of curves. This custom one we were using, next to it, there's other ones like hue versus hue, hue versus saturation. So let's look at hue versus saturation. If I click that, you get this. So now if I go actually to the screen and say, I don't like this orange. So let's click that orange. You can see now it actually created these little dots next to it. So now if I take that middle one and drag it down, you can see how the color of the car is being pulled out. So I'm just affecting the color of the car or anything that's that color range, the orange. Obviously, it's an extreme example. Even the color that's reflected on him. See, I can even enhance it like crazy too. So there's all sorts of little I can replace that color with another color using one of these things too. So that's the power of color grade. It just can do almost anything. But the important thing to remember is these 3 nodes are all you need to get a good basic color grade on anything. So real quickly, before we get too excited, I want to show you the easy way to do this. And this will work for any camera you're using. And it's recommended when you start a project in Resolve, if you just don't want to deal with color, just do this in the beginning. And you're going to laugh because I just went through this big thing about color grading, but it's important you know. So I'm going to go to that settings thing. Remember that wheel we talked about? And you would do this at the very beginning when you create your project, okay? So we're going to go to that settings window. Remember we were here? This is the number 3 thing I talked about from this panel. Okay, so now we're going to go to color management. And at the top here, color science, we're going to select color managed. Okay, first of all, I'm going to slide over here if I can, because just in case I might switch right away. Watch the image. Okay, didn't switch, but watch the image. So see how it already switched over to an almost reasonable color quality. Color managed will actually will set up the project to kind of put a light grade on everything, for lack of a better term. It basically manages the color pipe for any kind of footage you put in. So it's obviously not the best in the world compared, I had something more contrasty, but the nice thing is at that point, I can, you can, so I can go in here and I got to fix this because I deleted everything. So I can still go in here now and make changes like I was before, but I'm starting at a basis of something that was pretty decent. So now I can go add some more contrast. I can add another node. Now my saturation might be too much, so I can pull that back. And so I'm getting back to where I was before a little bit. But the beauty of the color managed, it kind of takes away the initial, I got to find a way to balance out that shot and make it work. And then it also deals with all the different kinds of shots. So if you shot with different kinds of cameras, you're not chasing different kinds of settings and stuff. It's sort of like putting a light LUT on everything at the beginning. So just to remind you, I'm going to go this way again under File, Project Settings, Color Management, and turn on, it'll come default here, Davinci Resolve YRGB, but change it to YRGB Color Managed. That's it, and save that. And it'll give you a decent base of color.
Is there a
Right.
reason why I don't see it shift when I click color managed? Like, is there something I have to have selected where it's not
Are-
working?
On your computer, and it depends on your footage, I guess. Are you using raw footage?
No, I'm using proxies.
But is it raw? Is it a log file?
Yeah.
Not sure. I'd have to look at your computer. So
Okay.
yeah, sorry. Real quick, 11:45. So we're gonna have to kind of move forward, but that's okay. We're right on time. Fairlight, really quickly. We've talked about that. You can see how the timeline shows up here. The picture doesn't show up because you can't edit picture here, but you can see how the clips show up there as a viewer. But this is more about tweaking all the different tracks and putting in different audio effects and things like that. And you can see right now I have selected ADR, where you can put in a list of different, you can create characters, you can create different lines they say, you can record them, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty cool. And then we're just going to skip over that because it's way more complex than anything. And then under the delivery page, which you will need, my computer catches up. Here it is. So once you've finished your edit, so we have our edit here and it's done, you can't really manipulate anything here. The only thing you can do is affect the timeline. So right now it's set to render entire timeline. If I wanted to just render a shorter bit of it, I can grab this handle and pull that back. So it only renders part of it, but I wanted to render all of it. So I'll leave it there. Then it's pretty simple. I usually leave it custom, but you have all these options here, even more than in that other setup. You can even export a DCP. If somebody says, I need a DCP for a theater, you can do that here. But create a file name, a location of where it goes. So we'll do first cut there. We'll save that there. Obviously, we want to create a one single clip rather than each cut being an individual clip, which we don't want. We want video. So here's our video. It's selected. We're going to do a QuickTime H.264, but you can do all sorts of things. As you see here, if I also select under codec, you can see for high res, you can do things like DNX HD. This is a Windows machine, so I can't do ProRes. On a Mac, you can do ProRes. On a Windows machine, you cannot. This resolution, I'm exporting at my timeline resolution, which remember is Ultra HD or 4K. If I wanted to just export at HD, I can change that here. So right there, for example. Everything else, you can just leave almost everything else automatic, but there's a lot of other settings. Once that's all set and you like it, and also, by the way, go to audio, make sure that's turned on. Then you just say down here at the bottom, add to render queue. And on the far right, it pops up. And if everything's good, you hit render all. And you can see it go through the render. And I'm just going to stop it because we don't really need to see the render. So there you go. That's how you deliver. So real quickly, let me show you. Let me go to. This is a project I did a bit ago, a web series called On Hold. I just wanted to show you what a big project looks like. Fairly big. And then I'll get to your questions. So this is basically, let's go to the timeline. So this is my, so you can see I was using lots of different features here, but so there's an edit that I did. It's like what is it, a 8-minute project. There's fusion effects. Here's a fusion effect in here, which we didn't even talk about. I was matting out. There's a boom mic in there, so I got rid of it. Yeah, lots of different visual effects and things like that. But that's what a project might look like if it's all one final product. But anyway, we don't have time to go into it. There's that fusion clip. So let me show you what that looks like. No, didn't go into the fusion clip. Oh, anyway, okay. I'm not going to look at that because it's going to get into too much. Joseph, my clip is an hour long. How do I set ins and outs to only color parts of the clip? Just if you clip it, if you cut it, use that razor blade and just cut it. It'll just play over those parts. You won't even notice that there's a cut there, but then in the color page, it'll look like a separate clip. And then you just color that part. Yeah, so there you go. Mark said the same thing. Yeah, there you go. Any other questions?
We have one at the top as well.
One at the top.
Yeah, Chinedu.
Yeah, my question.
Say your name wrong. Please correct me.
Chinedu.
Chinedu, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
My question is about when you're exporting the video clip. When I would do H.265 and sometimes even H.264, exporting like a 5-minute edit with the H.265, it was taking like 3 hours long to render. Would you happen to know what would cause something like that to happen?
What kind of computer are you using?
A MacBook Pro.
What year is the MacBook Pro?
2015.
It might be just the GPU is too slow. The Resolve is definitely, and is it the free version of Resolve?
I ended up getting the studio version, and I was still having the same issue.
Yeah, it might be if you go to if you're in Resolve and go to under the Davinci Resolve word at the top upper left and select preferences, look at memory and GPU and see what make sure your GPU is being used. The reason I'm on a Windows machine here is because I have a really big graphics card on the Windows machine. I prefer Mac, but the Macs just don't have, they have built-in graphics, so they're fine usually, but when I'm trying to do higher end stuff, it just doesn't, work as efficiently or quickly as a big GPU. So a lot of the times it's because it's an older computer, and it just doesn't have good enough GPU.
Got
And the Resolve Studio really uses GPU a lot.
Okay.
It's built for the GPU. So it might just be the age of the computer.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? I know it's a lot. All right. Andy?
I'm here. You want to put your little face back up on your screen? Yeah. Thanks, John. We already had someone say this was great. Awesome. You nailed it in 2 hours. You got through almost all the tabs.
I didn't show pulling pulling a mat with Fusion.
Oh,
This whole thing set up, but it'll take.
Well, we'll just have to do another workshop eventually.
Yeah, maybe so.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining. This will be edited and then available probably later next week for free on YouTube and our website. If you have any questions, are they allowed to email you, John?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
John PA at blackmagicdesign.com.
Yeah.
JOHNPA at blackmagicdesign.com.
I'm putting it in the chat. There we go.
Hey, real question. I might be too late though. When you were doing the audio and taking it from like YouTube, would it be like an issue with copyright, or like can you just download the music to put over, or audio from YouTube would be easier? Because I think you was up top and you said YouTube, and other things on top where you can take the audio from. Do you just go there and record it? Or how's that working? I missed that part.
I didn't say anything about audio, the YouTube. I think the export button was just exporting to YouTube if you wanted to.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I was wondering if there's a way to actually take audio.
To take audio from YouTube? No,
Yes.
you'd have to do that. You just have to take in a YouTube clip and just use the audio from it like you would any other clip.
Oh,
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
YouTube to MP3, where it's like it's illegal, but YouTube to MP3.
I know, yeah.
But if you want music, I use Artlist.io, and it's like $14 a month, and you have access to sound effects and music, and it's all royalty free. And so if you're doing reels or you want something in the background, that's a good affordable option as well.
Can you type it in the chat so I can copy it?
Yeah, I think it's Artlist.io.
Yeah, it is real.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. I put, and then Epidemic Sound for amazing
Yeah.
music. Thank you so much.
I use Epidemic as well. Yeah.
Oh, great. Cool. I don't know that one, so I'm going to look at it. Amazing. Thanks, everybody. We will be back probably next time with more classes with John because we just adore him. But for now, you can email him at johnpa@blackmagicdesign.com if you have any questions. And you can also join our film challenge where you can edit and resolve, put it to the test, and then maybe win some awesome cameras, speed editors, and other cool things. So
and let Indy know if you're interested in the Blackmagic Cloud, because I can go into that as well. It's a lot shorter class, but it's really cool. So
maybe we do a
I'll let you
follow-up
know.
with that. I don't even know much about
Yeah,
that.
we should do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Misha, for the shout out. We'll talk to you all soon. Cool. Bye.
Bye.